What's going on, guys? It's your boy Billy Chuck coming at you with episode 18. In this episode, we're going to talk about crossover band Suicidal Tendencies. Let's get it. All right. So, Suicidal Tendencies was formed in 1980 as a punk band in Venice Beach, California. The original lineup of the band consisted of my man Mike Muir on the vocals, Mike Ball on guitar, Carlos Eggert on drums, and Mike Dunnigan on bass. After the recording of their first album, Carlos Eggert left the band and was replaced by Dunnigan's brother, Sean. Mike Muir, at the time, he was a student at Santa Monica College, only intended Suicidal Tendencies as a party band, but as they grew in notoriety, he soon found the band at the center of his life. Suicidal Tendencies had a rough start, including being voted worst band slash biggest assholes in 1982. But the following year, they were voted best new band. There were many rumors of the band as well as their friends being involved with gangs. The band has undergone various lineup changes, with Mike Muir as the only remaining original member. Their current lineup includes Mike Muir, guitarist Dan Pleasant, and Ben Weinman, bassist Ty Trujillo, son of Robert Trujillo, which plays in Metallica, and drummer Jay Weinberg, along with DRI and Corrosion of Conformity and Stormtroopers of Death. Suicidal is often credited as one of the fathers of crossover thrash. They have released 14 studio albums, 4 of which are composed of re-recorded or previously released material, 2 EPs, 4 split albums, 4 compilation albums, and 2 long-form videos. Suicidal's first album was their self-titled album, and that was released in 1983. It spawned the single Institutionalized, which fucking changed my life. And it was one of the first hardcore punk videos to have considerable exposure on MTV. All right, Suicidal's third album was called How Will I Laugh, and that was released in 1988. This album is key to Suicidal, their musical developments, and that it takes the band leaving most of their full-fledged punk sound in favor of a more thrash-oriented sound. The addition of a rhythm guitarist, Mike Clark, who had previously played with Mike Muir in the band No Mercy, which was supposed to originally be a metal only side project, changed the band's style heavily as well. The album's back cover shows each member standing in front of the St. Sophia Cathedral in LA. The front cover shows the members standing in the front of the mausoleum next to the church. It has been renovated and expanded in the late 90s, so it doesn't look like it don't look like that on the cover anymore. They all did real fucking good in the thrash metal and heavy metal communities, with earning Suicidal Tendencies gold certifications by the RIAA. So congrats. Suicidal's fourth album was called Controlled by Hate slash Feel Like Shit, Deja Vu. That was released on October 17th, 1989. Although the album contains re recorded songs of previously released material, the album is still considered a studio album rather than being called an EP or a compilation album. Um, it includes four covers of No Mercy, a cover of Lost Psychos, It's Not Easy, two never before released tracks, Just Another Love Song, and Feel Like Shit, Deja Vu. The two different versions of How Will I Laugh Tomorrow from the band's 1988 album, the video edited version, and the heavy emotion version. Controlled by Hatred is the first of Suicidal Tendencies albums to go gold. Congrats. The album itself is represented as two fictional EPs. The first four tracks are labeled as Controlled by Hatred, and the remaining five are labeled Feel Like Shit, Deja Vu. The album was only a minor success, even though the album was very good. It peaked at 150 on the Billboard 200, making it Suicidal's third lowest album chart. It remained on that chart for 5 weeks. So, Suicidal's fifth album was called Light Camera Revolution, and that was released in 1990. It shows them straying further away from the crossover thrash sound and moving more towards a traditional thrash metal style. The song arrangements are more intricate, and so are Mike's lyrics. This was also the first album to display funk influences, which can be blamed on Robert Trujillo for his newly involvement in the band. Singles from this album include You Can't Bring Me Down, Send Me Your Money, Alone, and Lovely. The video for You Can't Bring Me Down received a fucking ton of MTV airplay and was mainly accountable for the success of the album. It was certified gold a few years later, so congrats, guys. It was also nominated for the Best Metal Performance Grammy Award in 91. So congrats once again, guys. Suicidal's sixth album was called The Art of Rebellion. That was released in 1992. Believe it or not, I really don't give a shit. But this album was the only album to be recorded without an official drummer. The drum tracks were handled by Josh Freese, filling in for the departed RJ Herrera. This album maintains its position as the band's most commercially successful studio album to date. The songs Nobody Hears and I Hate You Better both have the merit of being the only top 40 hits in Suicidal's career. This album was released in the success of uh it was around about the time the grunge scene took off. This album is considered to be one of Suicidal's best experimental albums. This fucking record is almost 60 minutes long. It was Suicidal's longest album to date at the time. They've had longer ones later in their career. Longtime drummer RJ Herrera left Suicidal just prior to the album's recording sessions, and instead of replacing him, the remaining members opted in to record as a four-piece and were joined by Josh Freese of the Vandals. He is credited as a session drummer on the album and does not appear in any of the photos on the insert. For the accompanying tour for the album, Herrera was replaced by former YNT and White Lion drummer Jimmy DeGrasso, who would stay in Suicidal until the band's initial breakup in '95. Suicidal's seventh album was called Still Psycho After All These Years, and that was released in 1993. This album is composed of re recorded songs from the band's '83 debut self titled album, re recordings of War Inside My Head and A Little Each Day from the band's second album, Join the Army and Don't Give Me Your Nothing, which was previously released as a B side to Send Me Your Money. Mike Muir was upset with Frontier Records, the independent label that released Suicidal Tendencies' debut album, over various royalty and publishing issues. Since he did not have rights to reissue the debut, he instead re-recorded the songs for release through Epic Records. All right, motherfuckers. Suicidal's eighth album was called Suicidal for Life, and that was released in 1994. It is their sixth full-length album with original material, and their last album to feature lead guitarist Rocky George and bassist Robert Trujillo. I never know. I get mixed emotions on how to pronounce Robert Trujillo's last name. Is it Trujillo or Trujillo? I don't know. But as well as their only one to feature drummer Jimmy DeGrasso, this album was also their final studio album on Epic Records and their last one before their temporary breakup in '95, '96. This album was seriously debated among fans and critics, which I never under fucking stood because if you like Suicidal, then you like them. You know, that's it. Just shut the fuck up and appreciate their fucking music. And that's it. That's it. It's not supposed to be that fucking complicated. But someone got their panties in a bunch, partly due to the album containing four consecutive songs with the word fuck in the title. By 1994, Suicidal had become increasingly weary of their newfound fame following the massive success of their previous records. And as a result, with this record, the band decided to tone down the clear views of their sound in favor of a more aggressive style than its forerunner. Mike Muir said, and I quote, "We're not for everybody," he said. We're not, we, we never were supposed to be. We're not supposed to be a big band. We got bigger than we should have been. But fortunately, not as big as other bands are. We probably be very unhappy. But I think what we do has meant a lot to other people, and to be able to have an opportunity to go out there and people discover you and still discover you and appreciate what you're doing, you can tell that. And I believe what we're doing is for all the right reasons. Thank you, Mike. You fucking changed my life, bro. The acute res- the acute response for Suicidal for Life was dull, to say the least. Even though the album failed to live up to the expectations of the band's earlier releases, this album actually peaked at number 82 on the Billboard 200 chart, making it their second highest chart entry behind The Art of Rebellion. Suicidal rarely played any songs from this album since their reunion in '96, although the song Fucked Up Just Right was played live again briefly in 2012. What else can I do? What you need's a friend, depression and anguish, evil, and love versus loneliness have never once been performed live. Suicidal's ninth album was Prime Cuts, and they released that in 1997. This record contains songs from each of Suicidal's major label albums, from How Will I Laugh Tomorrow When I Can't Even Smile Today through Suicidal for Life, as well as two brand new tracks, Berserk and Feeding the Addiction, and two reworked tracks from the '87 album Join the New Army, and Go Skate, Possessed to Skate '97. The 10th album that Suicidal did, it was called Freedom, and that was released in '99. On this album, the tracks are more fresh than the funk influenced thrash metal direction they were taking before the hiatus. The album's cover art is a reference to the photo raising the flag on Iwo Jima taken during World War II. CMJ New Music Report wrote that the songs display thousand mile thousand mile an hour classic hardcore guitar assault. In '05, the record was ranked number 489 in Rock Hard Magazine's book of the 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time. I don't know how many times I have to say, guys, but congrats once again. All right, guys. The 11th album that they recorded was called Free Your Soul and Save My Mind, and that was released in 2000. This album marked the only time the band did not make any changes over the three consecutive studio recordings. It's the first time they didn't make any personnel change. The general atmosphere of the album evolves around punk and metal riffs with Trujilla's bass and the psychedelic of funk music. Some songs are very repetitive, like Su Casa e Mi Casa, but the lack of evolution in the song is backed up by lots of solos from every instrument, something very enjoyable throughout the whole album. what you'll get is in this album is basically a punk metal rhythmic guitar, a solo guitar, funky drums, and a funky bass, backed up by Mike Mears' screaming and singing voice. There is something that makes people enjoy this album, while most people don't like it. It is likely that they added a lot more funk style to their music without falling in a cliche, making their music evolving and not incorporating funk. Mike Muir decided to do something intelligent with this album, starting with the lyrics. It feels like he is constantly telling you to do something right and be careful about what you do. This is definitely shown by the 3 minute song Psycho Speech, in which the title says Mike gives a rhythmic speech about thinking and acting. On the other hand, this album lacks in true outstanding songs. There isn't really a song that stands above all in quality. The hit single pop songs could have been on the previous album and is more of a joke than a serious song. Even though I'm sure Mike is serious with his lyrics. All right, you guys, Suicidal's next album. It was their 12th album. It was called 13. And that was released, you guessed it, 2013. March 26th, 2013 to be exact. This album was recorded over a 10-year period at the band's studio, while additional recording took place at Interscope Studios, Star Number 2, and Titan Studio. 13 is Suicidal Tendencies' first album containing original material since 2000's album Free Your Soul and Save My Mind. 13 is the band's only studio album with guitarist Nico Santora and bassist Stephen Werner and drummer Eric Moore. Mike Muir is a force to fucking be reckoned with in general, but I'm talking on this record. He is a ferocious frontman. He hasn't lost any of his drive or passion. To state the obvious, Suicidal won't fall under the category of sensitive. It is more noticeable with this record, also. So get this, right? It is the 13th straight release from this band with 13 new songs, 13 years since the last new CD, and from track one, Shake It Out, Suicidal is declaring to the world that they have returned. They literally chant Suicidal's back throughout the song, and they deliver their promise to bring the demons on out like a blasting machine gun. The band cranks up tempo with soul ripping guitars on the song "Smash It," and this ain't a celebration. Many of the songs on this album are in that, and they are by far the strongest. The album's title has various meanings. Um, like I said before, there's 13 songs on it. It's Suicidal's first full length in 13 years, released in 2013. But the number 13 is also a reference to alleged gang affiliation of the band, and 13 is heavily used in California Mexican American Swearno gang culture. 13 was Suicidal's first album since 94, Suicidal for Life, to enter the Billboard 200. However, the album debuted at number 187 making it their lowest chart position at the time. All right, guys. Suicidal's 12th album was called World Gone Mad, and they released that in 2016. First of all, I just want to fucking say something. Suicidal went 13 years between their two previous albums. It only took them 3 years to come raging back with this album, World Gone Mad. Suicidal has a legacy that's secure, but they've struggled with staying relevant in recent years. But the next most famous guy in the band at the moment is former Slayer drummer Dave Lombardo. He's even listed second in the credits. His skills are put to good use here. Plus, he gets to play more funky fills and drum rolls that he did in his 20 years off and on with Slayer. It's worth noting that lead guitarist Dean Pleasance has been in the band since 1996, and he is officially their longest tenured guitar player. He is also the best shredder the band has ever had. His Eddie Van Halen style solos are both frequent and lengthy. This record has none of the blindingly fast hardcore punk that they Suicidal had in their early years. It's fast, it's thrash metal style. The rhythm guitar is choppy, and the lead guitar fucking shreds. The bass fucking thumps and pops right out of the mix. All in all, this record has to be considered a complete success. It's been proven over and over that Suicidal was still a musical force to be reckoned with. What do you guys think? All right, guys. So Suicidal's 13th album was called Still Psycho After All These Years. That was released in 2018. Once you start listening to this album, you may feel like being teletransported in the early years of the century. And that's not by chance. This album is in fact a new recording of a previous album that Mike Muir recorded and published in 1996. To make things somewhat confusing, the title of the album is a homage to Suicidal's seventh studio LP, Still Psycho After All These Years, released in '93. Did you get all that? Did you? In the end, it doesn't matter. In a few words, the entire story says that Mike Muir felt the desire to take advantage of the explosive and powerful new lineup of the band, which nowadays includes the legendary badass fucking drummer, Mr. Dave Lombardo. And what's the result? In true honesty, I went to listen to the original LP from Psycho Myco, and in effect, the modernized version sounds much better. But taken as a standalone product, this album didn't impress me too much. The songs are nice, fast, fun, but in many listens, the album doesn't have any trace in my music memory. There is nothing memorable in the record, and the overall feeling is that of a funny experiment and exercise in style. But nothing more than that. I'll save a couple tracks for my compilations, but I probably won't come back often to listen to the entire LP. Love you, Suicidal, but you've done better. Suicidal's 14th album was called Get Your Fight On. I mean, it's the newest release that they got, and that came out in 2018. This album was also supposed to be a return to their sweet old school sound and their political roots, which they largely abandoned 30 years ago. The first track is called Nothing to Lose and is, in my opinion, it's the best song on the EP. Flat out kicks ass. These tracks were recorded at different times with slightly different lineups, but they don't feel at all disconnected. You wouldn't have ever known. The artwork is also a cool throwback to the band's early punk era. This record would undoubtedly be better if it were trimmed down to 6 songs or so. But how do you punish a band for, giving you too much? There's definitely enough good shit here for an above average EP. But the second half drags it down. This is intended to keep the fans happy while they're waiting for the next full length. Ultimately, it should just do that. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you. You like what you seen, like what you heard, like spending some time with your boy Billy Chuck. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, leave me some comments. I don't care if you're a fucking asshole. Just show me some love. Peace.